Bayshore, Millsboro. What's up, guys? A little hesitation, but I like during the video, my man right here was saying, what's up, Joel? So what's up to you? Good to see y'all. I'm glad to be here. Some of you have never met me before, and you're like, who's this guy? I mean, he looks like the normal guy, okay? Same barber, clearly. Both wildly handsome, you know. No, but my name is Joel, and I'm the campus pastor at Rehoboth, and it's cool. I got to go to Fenwick this morning. I hadn't been there for a while, and I got to do the Bayshore tour. And what's great is you guys are the OGs. Millsboro is the OGs. You are wise. Okay, turn to the person next to you and say, you're wise. You're so wise. All right, and then I went to, our campus, Rehoboth, we are 13 years old, so we're teenagers. And so since we're teenagers, we painted our whole auditorium black, which is exactly what a teenager would do, And then I was at Fenwick, and they are the new kids on the block, and it's just really, really cool to see what God is doing at all of our campuses. And but Millsboro is special. I mean, this is like, I feel like I'm like a home stadium. So I just thought we'd call this M&T Bank Stadium. The Ravens Stadium. Come on, this is not Heinz Field. This is not Lincoln Financial Field. This is the Ravens Stadium. Some of you are like, I've already lost you before I even got going, right? But I'm glad to be here. And just kind of a quick thing I was thinking on my ride over here is, our campus in Rehoboth launched back in 2011 because of you guys. You guys seeded and funded our campus. And so our campus has been open for 13 years. And I've been so grateful to be there over the last 10 years. Our campus has seen over 500 people accept Jesus, almost 200 people be baptized. We have 4 acres of land in Rehoboth Beach right now. And I don't say that to brag on, Rehoboth. I say that to brag on God and you guys, just funding us for being there. And so thank you. If I could, I'd take all of you all to Christian Chicken, to Chick-fil-A this week is what I would do, but I can't do that. But I just want to say thank you for helping with our campus. And I'm psyched to be here. If you're joining us online, we are so glad that you are tuning in. Can we make some noise for our online family? If you've never heard me speak before, I love interaction. And so the more you talk back to me, the better this is going to go. If you want me to preach until 2 p.m. today, say nothing. So now you're going to talk to me because I can hear your bellies, growling. So I thought we'd start out with a game. This whole talk, Sticks and Stones, I thought we'd start out with a game. And we'll put this game name up on the screen. I'm calling this game, What Scares You the Most? The Game. I came up with that. This is my game right here. And here's how it works. It's very simple. We're going to put 3 categories on the screen, and you get to choose what scares you the most out of these 3 categories. And we have spiders, we have snakes, and then we have a bonus category, turtles. So let's start out and figure out what scares us the most, Bayshore. How many of you would say spiders is what scares you the most? Spiders? Okay, that's bad news for you guys. I've been in this back room over here. Lots of spiders in there, okay? What about snakes? Who's going to go with snakes? That's what most people are going to go with, snakes. All right, at Bayshore, we're all about helping you get over your fears, and so we released 7 snakes in this room about an hour ago. So watch those ankles, okay? No, last but not least, is anybody going to go with turtles? Anybody got that salmonella phobia? Anybody? Oh, 1. Okay, all right, I like it. Nobody at any campus has gone with turtles except for you. I appreciate it. And that's my answer. Turtles is my answer, and I'll explain why. A couple weeks ago, I was writing a message in my home office, and my home office it's not really like an office, it's more like a phone booth. And if you're like under 20 and you're like, well, what's a phone booth? Okay, listen. A phone booth was this room that we used to have outside in the 1900s. And had a gigantic phone in it, okay? So I know it sounds very confusing, but my office is small, like a phone booth. And so the other day I was working in my office writing a message, and I have this window that looks into my neighbor's front yard and my front yard. And so I'm working, and I look out this window, and this is not a lie. I saw the biggest snapping turtle I've ever seen in my life crossing my neighbor's front yard. I mean, you could have put a saddle on this thing and ridden it into town. It was this giant snapping turtle. Now, This is probably a good time to introduce you to my family. And we have a picture so you guys can kind of get to meet my family. This is Tice, family of 4, party of 4 right here. And the real party is in the middle, that boy with the shaved head, Nixon James. And Nixon tells me about 20 times a day, hey, Daddy, I am an animal guy. And he is an animal guy, okay? Like he's never seen a snake he hasn't picked up. He finds brown recluses in my backyard, and he's excited about it, and I'm dying. I'm scared to death of it. When he goes crabbing with his grandparents, he picks up all the crabs. They pinch the crud out of him, but he loves every second of it because he is an animal guy. So I see this snapping turtle crossing my neighbor's front yard, and so I made the mistake of saying, hey, Nixon, bud, you got to come downstairs and see this giant snapping turtle. And it's like Nixon had been waiting his entire life to hear me say that. I don't even think his feet touched the stairs going down the stairs. He just flew down the stairs, ran out the front yard. I chased behind him, and next thing I know, we're standing in front of this snapping turtle. Now, if you don't know what a snapping turtle is, it's like a regular turtle, except it's demon-possessed. I mean, these things got red eyes, and they will crush you. They will eat you. And so after we looked at them for a few minutes, I was like, Nixon, I got to go back and work, bud. So why don't you can play out here, but do not touch the snapping turtle. It's demonic. So I go back in my office, and I look out my window, and what do you think I see Nixon doing? Touching the snapping turtle. First thing, he grabs the tail. Then he picks up the back of the shell and just this little hop with it. And in my mind, I think he's basically like picking this thing up and like dancing like he's in the Sound of Music through my neighbor's yard with this snapping turtle. And in my office, my angle, all I feel like I'm seeing is this. We'll put this on the screen. This is what I feel like I'm seeing Nixon dance with. We're not going to put it on the screen. Maybe, okay, no, it's the, I skipped ahead a little bit. Don't worry about it. There it is. Give a hand to the production booth. You guys are amazing. I went out of order, not you. Okay, anyway, so I see him dancing or like playing with this turtle that I think is basically Jaws, and my mind goes worst case scenario. I'm thinking, well, best case scenario, he's got salmonella. Worst case scenario, he's gonna get eaten by Jaws, and in every case scenario, my wife is gonna kill me, okay? And so that's why I said that the winner of this game is turtles, because turtles scare me after I saw my son playing with this turtle. Now, by the way, Nixon's fine. Everything's fine. My wife found out about this story the first time today. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But this week, I was thinking, I was scared to death of a turtle. And so I did a little research, and I Googled, how many people do turtles kill every single year? Does anybody know the answer? None. 0. Have you ever seen a headline that says local turtle mauls man to death? Have you ever seen that? No, because it's never happened. Now, I'm not telling you that you should like take your kid to a snapping turtle petting zoo after church today. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that I was scared to death of this turtle that I am bigger than, and I am faster than, and I am stronger than. Isn't that true? And the reason I say all that is because, have you noticed that sometimes in our life, we can make some things so big and so giant and so scary? Have you ever noticed that before? I promise you, there's someone in this room right now, there's someone who's watching this online right now, and you got something that is scaring you to death. And it is a giant that you feel like you are facing. And I just want to tell you, you don't have to be afraid of that thing. And, you know, a lot of times, look, a lot of times we think, you know, because of Jesus, like, what do I do? Okay, I have Jesus in my life, and so, like, how do I face these giants in my life? But the thing is, because of Jesus, we can face the giants in our life. I think a lot of times we're looking out the window of our life, and we see this, like, thing slowly coming at us. Like, I saw that turtle. And our minds can turn it into Bigfoot. But good news. Good news is this. Because of Jesus, your enemy has no power over you. You have authority over the enemy, you have power over the enemy, and you have victory over the enemy. And if you're a Jesus follower, a lot of times we're like, well, how do I get victory? How do I get victory over the enemy? Listen, you already have it. When you say yes to Jesus, listen, Jesus is like, I rolled away the stone the tomb, and I walked out of there, so I won so that you can win. And so today, what I want you to do is think about whatever that giant is in your life, okay? Whatever it is that's scaring you to death right now. And it could be anything. It could be it could be your kids. If you have teenagers, it's them. It could be your family. It could be your health. It could be your job. It could be your marriage. It could be your money. It could be summer traffic. Who is ready for September to roll around, people? But I want you to think about whatever that giant thing is that you're facing in life that seems like so scary. And while you're doing that today, I want to tell you about the best giant story in the Bible. Who knows where we're going with this? Who knows? Somebody say it. David and Goliath. I knew we had some Sunday school kids in the room. And so if you don't know how the story of David and Goliath goes, let me just tell you how it starts. First off, you have the Israelite army, and they're the good guys. And they're going head to head with the Philistine army, and they are the bad guys, okay? And so you have the Israelite army, and they are on this hill, and they're facing the Philistine army, and they're on this hill, and in between them, we have a character that no one ever talks about, and we'll put this on the screen. We have the Valley of Elah. The valley, there it is. Everybody say the Valley of Elah. The battle really happened over this valley because the Valley of Elah was a major trade route. And so whoever controlled the valley controlled the economy. And so if you wanted to keep getting those like Amazon Prime Day packages via Israeli UPS, the Israelites got to win the valley. And so in the Old Testament, a lot of times what would happen is each army would pick the best warrior that they had, and those two warriors would go head to head, and whichever warrior killed the other warrior, that army would win. If you're with me, say I'm with you. Okay, now I'm going to read out of the actual Bible later. So hold your horses, back row. I'm going to get there. But in the meantime, I want you to go back to the giants that you're facing or whatever it is that's scaring you, and I want to give you 3 ideas today in case you're taking notes. And so the first idea is this, and we'll throw this on the screen, is dealing with our giants is a process. Everybody say it's a process. Now, I have a question I want to ask you, and this question, it's going to age you a little bit. And for some of you, you're young, and that's good. The rest of us, we're about to, reveal that we actually lived in the 1900s with those phone booths. But how many of you are old enough to remember when the tape cassette was the way that you listened to music? If you don't have too much arthritis in your arm and you can hold, let me see, okay? Yes, a lot of you remember the tape cassette. Some of you are like, the tape cassette. Wake me up when we start talking about the phonograph, okay? But I'm a millennial, barely. But the tape cassette was the way that I listened to music when I first started listening to music. And so if you're younger, I want to explain what the process was that we used to have to go through to listen to music. First, you had to go to the mall. Now, I know, I already lost some of y'all. But in the mall, there were stores like Walden Books and Tower Records next to the KB Toys. Anybody having a flashback right now? And you go into these tape cassette stores, there'd be thousands of tapes. And the good news was the tape that you're looking for was under a genre. So you go to that genre first, and then it was supposed to be in alphabetical order, except for the person before you was crazy and put everything out of order. But finally, you would find the tape that you went there for, okay? Maybe it was U2's Joshua Tree album, Come On Somebody. And you would get your tape, and you would go up to the cashier to pay for the tape, because this is 1991. There wasn't a self-checkout kiosk that asked you to tip the cashier. We hadn't lost our minds yet, okay? And so then you'll get your tape, and then you'll go out to the car, and you bought this tape for one song probably. And if you're younger, you're probably like, well, then you just skip to that track. Oh, no. You put it in a tape deck. And when you put it in a tape deck, you went fast forward, play. Nope, that's it. Rewind, fast forward. Fast forward, rewind, rewind. What? Oh, it's on side B. Then you'd flip it around and you'd fast forward, rewind, fast forward. Wasn't this the process that we used to go through to listen to the music they wanted to listen to? Isn't that the truth? Nowadays, it's not like that. I like this Luke Combs cover song, Fast Cars, the old Tracy Chapman song. Anybody know that song? Yeah, it's a good song. That reminds me of my wife. You know, I like the song because fast cars. My wife drives our family car that way. But if I want to listen to that song, do you know what the process is nowadays? I say to my phone, hey, phone, would you play Fast Cars by Luke Combs? And my phone talks to outer space. And in 3 seconds, what is my phone playing? The song Fast Cars, okay? Everything is so fast now, except for actual cars. I haven't seen a fast car in Sussex County since April, okay? Everybody's going under the speed limit, all right? But here's my point. When we're facing giants in our life, we want a fast victory. We want a fast win, okay? And we definitely don't want a process, all right? We're like, okay, Jesus, I'm facing this giant addiction. And so if you could just fix this by lunchtime. Or, Jesus, I got this giant bitterness in me, so I just need some of that fast forgiveness. You got any of that, Jesus? Or like, you know, Jesus, I got this giant depression, and so I just need some of that fast acting joy or Xanax or whatever you can give me, Lord. Or like, Jesus, I got this giant family problemo, and it's not my fault, it's their fault. But would you just fix them real quick for me? And can you just make it snappy, Jesus? Make it snappy. Have you ever kind of wanted Jesus to just hurry things up? Thank you. Remember, the more you talk, the shorter this goes. But we want things so fast. But here's some just kind of real talk. Victory over our giants looks a lot more like a tape cassette back in the day than Spotify today. Like, victory normally doesn't happen like fast cars in 3 seconds. Victory normally looks like rewind, fast forward. Rewind, fast forward. In other words, it's a process. Everybody say it's a process. Now, let's get to the actual Bible. David, and the story of David and Goliath, if you don't know kind of David's story, when David was between the ages of 12 and 15, he was anointed future king over Israel. Okay, now, could you imagine 12-year-old you finding out, hey, you're going to be the future president of the United States? Could you imagine that? Like, 41-year-old Joel is moving out the country if I find out 12-year-old me is about to run the country. And so I wouldn't do anything good with it. But David, when he was 12 and he found out he was future anointed king over Israel, he was a shepherd. And so one day he's out shepherding his sheep, and his dad, Jesse, comes up to him, and that's where we're going to pick up the story, and we'll throw this on the screen in verse 17. It says, one day, Jesse, David's dad, said to David, his son, take this basket of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread and carry them quickly to your brothers, okay? And their brothers were out at the Valley of Elah in this battle. And he says, give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captain. And I always laugh when I read cuts of cheese in the Bible. Just a middle school boy in me. Anyway. His dad says, see how your brothers are getting along and bring back a report on how they are doing. David's brothers were with Saul and the Israelite army at the Valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. And so David left the sheep with another shepherd, and he set out early the next morning with gifts, as Jesse had directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army was leaving for the battlefield. And the Israelite army, when they were going to the battlefield, they were doing it with what? Shouts and battle cries. Hold on to that. I'm going to come back to that. Now, don't miss this. The future anointed king was willing to be an Uber Eats driver for his older brothers before he ever experienced any victory in his life. You with me? Now, think about this. When David's dad, Jesse, came up to David and said, hey, David, I need you to deliver like cheese and crackers. This is basically a charcuterie board. I want you to deliver this charcuterie board out to your brothers. Couldn't David have said, Dad, did you forget who I am? I am the future king. I am anointed. I'm not doing that. Now, he was a teenager, and so he would have probably said it a little differently. You know, like, Dad, you're acting sus. I got Riz. No cap. I'm not an Uber Eats driver. Some of you are confused, but I'm trying to bring the teenagers into this. But couldn't David have done that? Yes, but David was willing to go through the process of being faithful with the small things today to get a victory over his giant later. And maybe you're like, well, I don't know what to do with that. Well, here's my takeaway. I believe that when we're willing to go through the process of being faithful with the small things that Jesus wants us to do today, that sets us up to have victory over our giants later. When we're faithful to do the small things Jesus wants us to do today, that sets us up to have victory over our giants later. Now, I think a lot of times we think, all I'm doing is just this small stuff. It's not really going to help me fight a giant. What I do is I try to read my Bible a little bit in the morning. I say some prayers throughout my work day. I try to, come to Bayshore, Millsboro on the weekend, sing in tune, which you guys crushed, by the way. Especially you, Corey Phoebus. It sounded good. Come on, you guys sounded good this morning. But I think a lot of times we think, all right, that stuff is not big enough to help me fight a giant. But I 1,000% believe that our spiritual consistency plus time gives us the tools we need to have victory over the enemy when the enemy shows up on our doorstep. I'm going to say that again. I 1,000% believe that our spiritual consistency over time gives you the tools you need to have victory over the enemy when the enemy shows up on your doorstep. And so what do we do? Well, we don't skip leg day. Everybody say, don't skip leg day. And by leg day, I mean Bible, prayer, church, worship. Can we do another set? Randy, can we do another set? Okay. Bible, prayer, church, worship. I'm pretty sure your whole section is about to get into this, okay? Bible, prayer, church, worship. Let's do another set. Bible, prayer, church, worship. Have you all been working out? Because you look kind of swole, Corey. But more importantly, when you do that, you're prepared for battle. Because when you have spiritual consistency, over time, it prepares us for battle. But it's a process. It's a process, and it was for David. Now, let's go back to our points, okay? Dealing with our giants, the second idea after it's a process is full of obstacles. It's full of obstacles. Now, I want you to think of the scariest movie you've ever seen in your life, and I want you to tell one person what that movie is. And if it's The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock, nobody's going to judge you. It's okay. But tell one person the scariest movie you've ever seen in your life. It's okay to talk. You can talk in church. Okay, some of you are telling them the whole plot line to the movie. I need some people to tell me what you said. I need somebody to shout it out what you said.
Silence of the Lambs.
What? Silence of the Lambs. Oh, that's a good one. What? The Omen. That just sounds scary. I've never seen it. Someone else say something? Halloween. The Exorcist. Somebody at our campus said that too. Yep. Hey, listen, I don't like scary movies at all. Okay, like I think going to Walmart on the weekend is all the scary I need in my life. But sometimes my smoking hot wife will be looking all hot, and she'll say, baby, would you watch a scary movie with me tonight? And I soften up, in my heart. I'm just like, okay, I'll do it. And I'll be honest, my motives are impure. I think I may be rewarded at the end of the scary movie. And so a few years ago, my wife did the thing. She's looking great on the couch, and she's like, honey, would you watch a scary movie with me? And I'm like, okay, which was a terrible choice, because next thing I know, I'm watching this movie called Paranormal Activity. Anybody ever seen Paranormal Activity? Who's seen it? Okay, you all need Jesus? Yes, yeah, you do. And if you've never seen that movie, it's about these invisible spirits. And listen, I'm a pastor. Invisible spirits, it's not make-believe to me. I get people at the church call me at our campus. They're like telling me about the paranormal activity going on in the laundry room. And so I'm thinking this is real life. And so I'm watching Paranormal Activity. I'm only 7 minutes in, and I am 99% sure that the vase next to the TV moved. And I'm 100% sure I can't tell you the words that went through my head when I thought I saw that vase move. It's the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life. It affects me to this day. Like at night, if I hear something in my house, I sit up and I think about Paranormal Activity. And then I wake my wife up and I say, honey, I heard something in the living room. And I need you to go check on it because you're the one who did this to me. It affects me to this day. Scary movies are an obstacle in my life. And anyway, but I tell you that because I think when we think about our giants in our life, they are an obstacle. And when we think of it and we see those giants, it affects us. And so the exact same thing happens in the story with David and Goliath. Now remember, David was Uber Eats, driving out some food out to his brothers on the battlefield. And so let's pick up in verse 21. It says this. It says, soon the Israelite and Philistine forces stood facing each other, army against army. David left his things. Remember, what did he bring? He brought cheese and crackers. He brought the charcuterie board. So he leaves that with the keeper of supplies. And he hurried out to the ranks to greet his older brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. And then David heard him shout his usual taunt to the army of Israel. As soon as the Israelite army, help me out on 3. 1, 2, 3. Saw him, they began to what? Run away in fright. Now, I like to picture what I'm reading in the Bible. And so I want you to picture that Goliath is over 9 feet tall. And I am from Gumboro. I grew up 200 yards this way in a trailer. And in Gumboro, we call people like Goliath a biggin. Everybody say a biggin. Goliath is a biggin. Okay, he's like, Buddy the Elf in the North Pole. He's a biggin. And he's on the Philistine side of the hill looking across to the Israelites. And he's saying, oh, Israelites, you guys look cute today. Did your mommies dress you for battle? How about you come over here? I eat one of you all for breakfast. And so he's like taunting them. Now, if you know the story of the Bible, at this point in the Bible, the Israelites already know, hey, we are God's people. God has our back. And if we keep our eyes on God, we can expect victory. They already know this. But if we can put that verse back up on the screen, verse 17 through 21, I believe. Okay, who were their eyes on? I'll tell you, it's Goliath. Their eyes are on Goliath. And what did that make them do? Just look at the last 4 words. Run away in fright. And if you ever notice that when you take your eyes off of the Lord, you start to get intimidated by the enemy. You start to get defeated by the obstacles in our life. Is it just me? It's just me? Is it just me? No, thank you. Okay. Now, if you remember earlier, when the Israelites were heading into battle, they went in with battle shouts and battle cries. Remember that? 2 seconds later, they see Goliath, they see their obstacle, and they turn into Forrest Gump. Because they are running, okay, they're running from Goliath. Now, here's the thing, I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes all it takes is the smallest stuff to get my focus off of the Lord and onto what is defeating me. And like, for example, a few weeks ago, my wife, she was like, hey, honey, how about we take the kids to Assateague Beach tomorrow? And I love Assateague. Anybody love Assateague? It's a nice beach. The flies are crazy. Speaking of Goliath, they are Goliath flies. They are humongous. But as soon as Stacey said, let's go to Assateague, all of a sudden, it triggered a memory in my mind. And that memory gives me so much shame. And here's what happened. A few years ago, I pulled up to the Assateague Beach Park, little entry booth, to go surfing late one summer night. And there was this sign on the booth that said, Honor System. Please pay $5 in the entry fee box and enjoy the park. And so I reached in my wallet and I looked and I didn't have $5. I had a 20. And so then Pastor Joel started looking around the parking lot, looking behind me, making sure nobody from the Rehoboth campus was nearby. Then I sunk real low down in my seat and I went on through. And I am the Assateague criminal. If you've ever seen the Assateague top 10 most wanted list, I'm at the top of the list. But I still feel so much shame about that. Like, just her saying Assateague made me go right back to that moment. Now, I know. Some of you are like, that is not a big deal, okay? Like, last time I went to Assateague, I stole a couple horses, really. But for me, it is a big deal. And so now when I go there, I like force myself to put extra money in the booth. And I'm like single-handedly funding the park is what I'm basically doing. But isn't it funny how you can be having the best day in the world and then the enemy will remind you of something from your past and it starts to pull you down? That ever happened to you before? Oh my goodness, and the enemy will say, hey, I remember what you did in high school? I do. Remember what you did last summer? Or remember what you did 23 minutes ago in the church parking lot when you almost ran over Sister Fran? And our past is an obstacle. And none of us are innocent. Would you agree? None of us are innocent. But neither were the Israelites. And what did God say to them? You all are my people. I got your back. If you just keep your eyes on me, you can experience victory. And I think that is a message that God wants some of you to hear today. You're not innocent, neither am I. But God still looks at us and says, you all are my people. I got your back. If you just keep your eyes on me, you can expect victory. But a lot of times our eyes are on our obstacles. And oh, by the way, Jesus loved to turn our obstacles into opportunities. You ever notice that? Like in the Bible, you know, if there was a sick person, that was an opportunity for Jesus to heal somebody. If there was a dead person, that was an opportunity for Jesus to say, hey, come on, walk out of that tomb. If there was a religious person, that was an opportunity for Jesus to say, hey, you're just as jacked up as the worst sinner that's out there. And so Jesus always took obstacles and turned them into opportunities. And so back to David and Goliath, the entire Israelite army sees an obstacle except for one person. Who's that person? David. And so watch this. In verse 32, don't worry about this Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go fight him. I'll go fight him. Now, here's my last point, and my favorite out of the 3 points, is that dealing with our giants is how we experience victory. It's how we experience victory. Now, one of my favorite things to do with my kids is watch fail videos on YouTube. Any fail video fans in the room at all? Anybody? Okay, yeah, a few of you. And watching fail videos with your kids is how you connect with your kids in 2024. And so one of the things I've noticed is that anytime anybody's wearing virtual reality, a headset in a fail video, somebody's about to run full speed through a living room wall. It's just going to happen, and it's going to be a funny video. And so I remember a couple years ago, I was out in this lobby right out here, and RJ was our media guy at the time. And RJ had a virtual reality headset, and he's like, hey, Joel, do you want to try virtual reality? And I'm like, yes, like I've never tried it before. And so RJ put this headset on, and then I couldn't see anything, all right? And so what I didn't know is he started videoing me. By the way, RJ no longer works here. Just kidding, RJ. Love you, buddy. But RJ, he put me on this roller coaster simulator. And just so you know, like lower your expectations. I didn't like run through a living room wall or anything, but I do have the video if you want to see my first virtual reality experience. You want to see that? Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and throw this up here. Okay, Listen, right then, I thought I fell off the roller coaster. Like, I thought I was dead, all right? And if you've ever tried virtual reality before, isn't it true that what you think you're seeing, don't you think it's real? Isn't that true if you tried it before? Guys, I was reacting to stuff that wasn't even there. And I tell you that because I think sometimes our enemy is so good at getting us to react to stuff that's not even there. Did you know all the studies show that 90% of what you're worried about right now never is going to happen? 90% of what you are worried about right now that kept you up last night, 90% of the time, it is not going to happen. Now, I know somebody in the room is like, well, I'm part of the 10% club. And I get that, all right? So, you know, if you're kind of in the 10% club and it's real for you, I think we should talk about real for a second. Because what's real is that the enemy, your enemy, has no power over you. That's real. What else is real is that the giant that you're facing right now is nothing compared to the size of your God. That's real. And at every campus at Bayshore, we went and every service with this verse. If God is for us, help me out, church, who can be against us? That is real. And so if you're going to see something, I want you to see what's real. And so let me show you how the story with David and Goliath really ends. And so this is in verse 41. It says, Goliath walked out toward David with his shield bearer ahead of him, sneering into contempt at this ruddy-faced little boy. Am I a dog, he roared at David, that you come at me with a what? A stick. and he cursed David by the names of his gods. Come over here, and I'll give you your flesh to the birds and the wild animals, Goliath yelled. Now, I'm a little ashamed to admit this as a pastor, but up until 2 weeks ago, if you could put that verse back up there, I had never seen that word stick in the story. Never. Okay, I always imagine little Rudy-faced David, that they describe in the story. I just imagine what Goliath saw was his slingshot and the stones. That's what I always imagined. But the story says that Goliath saw the stick. You see that? And so what's with the stick? Where did the stick come from? Well, if you remember, David was a shepherd. What do shepherds carry? Sticks. They carry a staff and a rod. And so maybe the slingshot, the stones were kind of tucked away, hidden, and Goliath, all he sees are the sticks. And Goliath is taunting little Rudy-faced David, and he's like, oh, David, did you bring some sticks to fight today? Did your mommy pack some sticks in your Lunchable? How about you bring your sticks over here, and I'm going to show you my sword. And Goliath missed the slingshot and the stones because all he saw were the sticks. Are you with me? Okay. So let's keep going. And then in verse 48, it says, as Goliath moved closer to attack, David quickly ran out to meet him. Reaching into his shepherd's bag and taking out a stone, he hurled it with his sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and Goliath stumbled and fell face down to the ground. And so David triumphed over the Philistines with only a sling and a stone. I love this part, for he had no sword. And then here's the part that they never read us in Sunday school. That's maybe the coolest part of the story. Then David ran over and he pulled out Goliath's sword from its sheath. And David used it to kill him and cut off his head. You all should read the Bible. It is R-rated and it is good. He cuts off the Philistines' head. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, now what'd they do? They turned and ran away. It's the best giant story in the Bible. And what I couldn't help but notice this week is the entire Israelite army was intimidated by Goliath, except for one guy. Because David knew that he knew that he knew that he was anointed by God. And I don't know who needs to hear this today, but when you say yes to Jesus, from that point on, you are anointed and highly favored by the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. I'm going to say that again because that is good stuff. Listen, when you say yes to Jesus, from that point on, you are anointed and highly favored by the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You need to hear that when you're facing your giants today. And I did this whole talk to point out something that I just think is really cool that I noticed a couple weeks ago, and we'll put this on the screen. Goliath was focused on the sticks, but David used the stone to get the victory. Now, maybe you're like, well, how does that help me? Well, 2,000 years ago, there was a man named Jesus, and Jesus was up against his own Goliath named Satan. And their battle didn't happen in the valley of Elah. It started in the Garden of Gethsemane. And a few hours later, Jesus is walking through the streets carrying two sticks that we know as the cross. And all Satan saw were the sticks. And Satan was like, oh, you coming at me, Jesus, with some sticks? Why don't you bring those sticks over here, Jesus? I'm going to put you on those sticks. I'm going to murder you, and I'm going to beat you once and for all. And if you know the story, that kind of happened. But we know, Matthew tells us something happened 3 days later. Matthew 28, starting at verse 1. Early on Sunday morning, as the new day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went out to visit the tomb. Suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled aside, what did the angel roll away? The stone, and sat on it. Listen, this is mind-blowing to me. Satan was focused on the sticks, but Jesus used a stone to get his victory. And because the stone was rolled away, Jesus walked out of that tomb in victory. And because Jesus walked out of his tomb in victory, you get to walk out of Bayshore Millsboro today in victory. You have it. You get to walk out of here in victory because the Bible says the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lives in me, lives in you, lives in you, lives in you, and lives in us. And so, if you're facing a giant today, if you're scared of something today, what do? Well, when you focus on the stone, we get to walk in victory. When you focus on the stone, we get to walk in victory. Aren't you thankful for that, church? I'm so thankful for that. Now, a lot of this message throughout, I said, if you're walking in Jesus or if you had said yes to Jesus, and I always like to end my messages by giving you an opportunity to say yes to Jesus. If you've never crossed that line of faith, today is the best day in the world to say yes and have a giant God at your back, at your front, and at your side. And so if you'll just bow your heads, and if you want to cross that line of faith, you've never said yes to Jesus, the Bible says if we'll just acknowledge God before man, that God will acknowledge, or Jesus will acknowledge us before his Father in heaven. So if you just raise your hand, no one else is looking around but myself, and I just want to be the one who acknowledges what I see. I see these hands throughout this room. I see that. So here's what we're going to do. If you just raise your hand, or if you're already a Jesus follower, let's say this out loud together. Dear Jesus, today I'm accepting you as my Lord and Savior. Jesus, I believe you're the Son of God. And I believe I'm a sinner. But you went on a cross for my forgiveness. And you walked out of a grave alive for me. And so today, Jesus, I accept your forgiveness. And I claim that you're my Savior. Help fight my battles. In Jesus' name. And everybody said amen. And can we just celebrate those who made that decision today? That is so exciting.